Welcome to Nightmares Before Bed, a supernatural podcast where each show will explore dark and mysterious places, eerie creatures, and all things spooky and creepy. And speaking of spooky and creepy, please help me welcome your hosts Jonathan Rosen and Troy Cannon.
Hello and welcome to Nightmares Before Bed. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Troy Cannon. And today we are going to take a look at a fascinating piece of New Orleans history. And this was your suggestion today, so I'm going to let you introduce this because I was a little bit. I'll let you introduce it first, and I'm going to make some comments. Go ahead. Yes.
Marie Laveau is. I actually learned about her from the American Horror Story.
That's exactly
TV
where I
show.
learned about her too.
And I saw the TV show. I actually had a friend that worked at American Horror Story. She went to Gibbs with us. We went on a date once or twice, but
Really?
she was in that. Yeah. I'll send you a picture. I'll tell you who she is.
Okay.
But so I saw the show. It was very interesting. I do a lot of travel. Any chance I get, I throw $50 in the truck and I drive and go see something. I love to do that. So I was headed across country and I was like, man, if I just go out of my way like an hour, I can hit New Orleans. So I hit New Orleans because you know it's New Orleans. Why wouldn't you want to do that? So I hit New Orleans and I started hearing the stories from the local people. I'm sitting there, I'm eating. I had gator for the first time, and this
I've
woman's
eaten
telling
gator
me
once in my life too. Yeah, so
it's not really that bad. I thought I was going to eat it and like throw up on the table. I was thinking to myself, how am I going to explain this? But I'm going to taste it. It's not that bad.
all right,
So
before you get to, I just want to say quickly, when they say tastes like chicken, I really did think gator tasted like chicken. Did not mind it. It was I only had
it's
it once, but I did not mind it.
I had it twice. I had it like when I was almost in New Orleans. I had gator ribs, which were like the size of my pinky. Seems like
Right.
gators being so big, it would be bigger, but and I had gator sausage. And I'm
We're
sitting there and
veering off now, but anyway.
I hear two women talking, and one of them says something. They're talking in French. My French a long time ago used to be fair. Today it is on par, very little.
I didn't even know you knew French.
And
I took French a semester too. I don't remember anything really.
I remember a lot of it. But so I hear them talking, and they're talking about Marie Laveau, and I'm like,
And you were in
is
New
she
Orleans then.
I was in New Orleans at that time. So I interrupt. I'm like, excuse me, are you talking about like the voodoo chick? And they both looked at me and their faces got pale and they were like, she's she's not a voodoo chick. And I was like, no disrespect. I just, the woman. And the looks on their face was as if I was talking about a tough guy that was sitting next to me, as if someone could reach out and grab me. So I was like, oh, I better give a little bit more reverence to this. So we were talking and they told me that there was a tour. So I took the tour. And we're taking a tour. We're going through the cemetery, and we're headed to Marie Laveau's burial site. And the tour guide is giving. He's in this, he's got this big long stick, and he's got this white outfit with these little. He's got dreadlocks, and he's got all these little things hanging off of him. He looks like a voodoo priest, and he's walking with his cane. And he didn't look like he needed the cane. It was for effect. He's
Right.
walking and everything, and he's talking to us. And actually, right before you get to Marie Laveau's burial site, there's a burial site for Nicolas Cage. It's a gigantic pyramid, and it's immaculate. It's like smoothed out and everything. It looks like it was just
What, that
made.
he just bought to have ready for him?
Yeah, yeah. He bought it in advance. And when I went there, well, it must have been 6 years ago when I was there. So he bought it in advance of that because when he dies, he wanted to be buried next to Marie Laveau
Oh my
in the
God.
hopes that she could bring him back. So he bought
I can see
a
this as a
tombstone.
Nicolas Cage thing. I really can. Yes,
He does he does odd things with his
yes,
money, man. I don't know if I was rich, I'd probably do odd things too. But he
absolutely.
so I'm there and I'm like, so this is her grave, and he's smoking a cigar and he blows the smoke in the air and he says, one of them. And I was like, what did they like cut her up into pieces? And he said, no, no, she kept escaping the grave. And they thought that perhaps it was her people bringing her back. So they have three different sites, and there's no telling which site she's actually buried in. So when her people would come to, revive her, in the hopes they would get the wrong grave, they have three different sites.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And now I'm starting to wonder, why would they think they needed to do that? The actual police in New Orleans, according to this guy, was scared of her. Um, she had several above water businesses, and she had a lot of below level businesses. And she was like supposedly the leader of a guild of thieves. They're breaking in people's houses, stealing stuff, all kinds of stuff like that. So the police finally decided we're going to get her. They catch her, they put her in jail, they say they're going to kill her. So I believe the first time they said they shot her. And then maybe 6 months later, she was walking the streets again. And they're like, wait, we we shot her, man. You're supposed to be dead. So they catch
Like
her,
a Rasputin thing. Yeah.
like Rasputin. They
Yeah.
bring her back, Lazarus or something. He's just rising from the grave. And then they bring her back and then they hang her. And then they said maybe a year later, she was out on the streets and was robbing people and selling her gree-grees, her voodoo charms and stuff. So the third time, I can't remember if they killed her or she died. What was her final supposed death? But they buried her in different locations because they said that her voodoo clan of people, her coven, kept bringing her back to life. So they're like, you know what? Don't let anybody know where she's actually buried, so this chick can just stay buried. So this is the story he gives me. I'm listening to it. I'm like, man, wow, that is very interesting. And he said, yeah, she bestows gifts upon people if you leave something at her grave. So I'm standing there and I'm like, okay. So I sit in the chair. They got a chair there if you're bold enough. So I sit in the chair. I left, I can't remember whatever I had in my pocket, like $5 or something. Like I left something because I don't want this, just in case. I don't want her showing up in the house or something like that. You didn't leave anything. So I left like $5 or whatever I had in my pocket. And I sat there and I was like, I gotta get a picture of this. So I'm trying to do a selfie, and the guy said, "Give me a camera." So I gave him the camera, and he snapped a picture of me sitting there in front of the grave. I'm sure it will show up on here, and I thought that was amazing. So um, I went back and I rewatched the show because I couldn't believe that I actually sat at the grave of this woman who supposedly, kept coming back to death. Now, researching it,
Well, we
what I
haven't even gone in. You have to explain who Marie Laveau was because we haven't explained that yet.
Marie Laveau is the descendant of slaves who ended up in New Orleans. Her lineage is Africa, Native American, and French, but she's in America. So her parents, were African American, French. She's from a line of Native Americans, all of that such. And her grandmother was a free woman.
Right.
Marie Laveau was a free woman. Her grandmother was free as well and owned a salon. So in that salon, Marie Laveau grew up. She grew up in the church. Um, I can't remember what it wasn't Pentecostal, but I can't remember. But she grew up in the church, and she learned voodoo from a powerful voodoo priestess and from her grandmother. And back in those days, being Christian and learning voodoo for the African American slash French community was a thing. It wasn't
Right.
sacrilegious. So she learned all of this stuff. Now, where the fog of her story comes in is working in this salon. She met a lot of Portuguese, French, and Spanish and Caucasian wealthy people.
Mhm.
And she heard them talking. And supposedly she had like I said, a guild of thieves, and she had ears everywhere. She would hear stories and whatever, and then she would tell people she was clairvoyant. And she would tell them the things about their household or things that were upcoming. But people say it's because she was working there, man, and she was just hearing all of the stories, and she had people telling her stuff. So it could be that she was magical. It could be
You heard all
that
the gossip
she
from everywhere else. Like,
heard all the gossip. Yeah.
right.
So that's primarily her thing, and about her potentially continuing to come back to life. She had 14 children. 7 of them lived. um, Her last surviving daughter
Right.
carried her name, and people are saying that it wasn't Marie coming back, it was
It
her
was,
daughter,
I
and
read that.
people just were confusing them. So
She looked so much
she
like
could
her,
be,
but younger.
yeah. So it's one of those things where you can flip a coin. Maybe yes, maybe no. There's a little bit of fog in there.
So here's the thing. So I want to find out more about your trip. I cut you off with the trip. But like I said, I learned the same way as you. I think I knew the name beforehand, but then we started talking about American Horror Story, and that's where I first really started getting interested in Marie Laveau. So I thought it was a good suggestion when you made this. But there's so much speculation about a ghost coming back, and some of the things too. They said, that, I read conflicting stories. I don't know if you read that too. Like some say that she was this nice woman. Some say that she might have not been so nice. Maybe that's the voodoo stories coming in. And here's the stuff that I love that she was considered nice, but her original husband and kids just disappeared one day. Like, how do you just have no one questions that? That it's just like the husband and the kids disappear. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. That's the part right off. That it's kind of creepy to me right off the bat that her family just disappears and no one questions it, and she doesn't talk about it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the husband disappears, and almost immediately afterwards, she starts dating a wealthy
Right,
Frenchman.
right.
And the Frenchman dies, and she inherits all of his wealth. She could have been doing that Black Widow thing where you're
Yes.
knocking your husband off. So I saw off subject but on subject. I saw a movie with LL Cool J and Whoopi Goldberg. I can't remember the name of it. His uncle died. LL Cool J's name was Bud. I remember that. And his uncle dies, or his father dies. And there was such a big uproar about the funeral that he tells his wife, look, when I die, I don't want you to have those problems. Just bury me in the backyard and tell them I ran off with another woman, and nobody will ever question it. And I thought about that, and I was like, people would question it. Of course they would. They'd be like, what woman? Where's he at? Who's it? And I thought about it. If they said he ran off, then he just ran off. Would anybody question it? That makes me think about this. She could have said, oh, he's dead. I don't know what happened to him. And they may or may not have had an interest in it. I mean, they might have been like, oh, what you gonna do now? And
She got
just
rid of her family to be with the rich guy, and then she got rid of the rich guy to get the inheritance.
you know what? After marrying a rich guy, people probably would have said, "Oh, so your husband just died, huh?"
Right, again, the second time.
Again, yeah. So
So go back to your story. So you were there. You were at the grave.
yep, I was at the grave, and the 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 grave itself was interesting. There was a lot of graves. That
I
grave
got to go
site
there.
was
You've been to
like
some cool places. I've not been to New
we've
Orleans.
got to check that place out.
Yes, we
It's not
do.
bad. That grave site reminded me of if you were watching a vampire movie and the vampire was moving through a grave, and all of the grave sites, all of the tombs and everything had like angels, carvings of angels, and priests holding out their hand and the rosary beads and all kind. It was that kind of a place where every time you turned your head, there was a carving. It wasn't like in Florida, because the sedimentary rock, you can't dig too deep.
Okay.
So most of the graves are it's just a level line. Sometimes you get the tombstones or whatever, but here it was big and grand. Everything was large. Um, And it was interesting. And it seemed like the kind of place that we went during the day. I made sure I went like in the morning. But if we would have went at night, it was the type of place that from appearance, it looked like you take the wrong turn and then you're lost. And then you're going to be in it was more of a maze than that Stanley Hotel maze.
Uh-huh.
And I was going to climb through the bushes there. But this place, if it wasn't for the guide walking around, I'm pretty sure I'd have gotten lost. It was that kind of a place. And to be honest, I was almost as curious about Nicolas Cage's tomb as I was that, because they were like right near each other.
Now, even if I had all this money, I'm just because the Nicolas Cage thing hasn't left me since you just mentioned it at the beginning now, because I didn't know this part. If I'm going to like, I put myself in cryo. If I had all this money, I put myself in cryogenics that they bring me back. I am not going to be burying myself next to some voodoo priestess. It's, I'm gonna be a zombie. That's what's gonna be. Oh,
And it's possible. It's possible because she supposedly, I mean, her zombie was the name of her pet snake that she told
right.
everybody was an actual Loa. It was, it's an actual voodoo god that hangs
Yeah.
out with me, and I dance with it in the street. And she was powerful enough and scary enough that people believed that. The police supposedly were scared of her, you know?
Well, once even now, I mean, we've talked about this through other shows that, do we believe certain things? Do we not believe certain things? When someone's doing all the voodoo stuff, I'm I'm not going there. I'm just that stuff that stuff like keeps me out. I see, all the movies. What was it? The movie with Robert De Niro and Lisa Bonet. What was that movie? The Angel
That
Heart? Is
was
that it? Angel Heart?
Angel Heart.
Right.
Angel Heart, yeah.
That stuff just creeps me out. All this stuff.
Yeah, Louis Cypher.
Yes, right, exactly. So what's all the so there are so many stories of ghost sightings around her house though. Now, like to this day.
Yeah, yeah. They're well, when I and again, it was like maybe 6 years ago, 6, 7 years ago when I was there. But when I was there, the guy said that they still have people saying that they see her walking the streets at night, dancing in the street, walking in the streets, hanging out. My daughter went to New Orleans, and she tells me horror stories about that. She's like, yeah, there's don't go there, Dad. There's vampires, and I was like, I've already been there. And she's like, yeah, and I was like, I didn't see no vampires. At least, nobody showed me their teeth, but so I don't know if I saw any vampires. But
There are many
I
New
was like,
Orleans
I've already
stories.
been
Yeah.
there. Yeah, but she went there and she said that she had experiences, so it's the kind of it's New Orleans is one of the we talked before about places of power and haunted places and stuff like
Yeah.
that. All of New Orleans has a mystical, magical, voodoo-y, vampire, werewolf kind of a thing happening. There's so many different stories and so many different bits of lore that
Right.
come from that area. So, I'd visit, but I wouldn't live there.
I got to get there.
I'm
I've
sure
not been
someone
there. Nothing. Look, I mean, I know two things um, with New Orleans. So there's a lot of supernatural stories there, and good things happen when you give someone beats. That's the only thing that I know with New Orleans. Those are the two things that I'm aware of. So, but yeah, what's the deal with the feather? Okay, so you give a feather as offering. What's the deal with it?
um at her gravesite. There are
Right.
particulars that she wants. Different grave sites for different people, depending on their particular spiritual, religious background. There are different things for her. It would be feather is one of the things. I want to say tobacco, but I can't remember if it was tobacco or not. There was a couple of things that she wanted in particular, and her earthly power was such that even to this day, people figure that they should pay attention to her desires. She wants a feather. She wants this. She wants that. Give it to her. Um, she made these gree-grees. Um, in Judeo-Christian, they would probably call them
Right.
witch bags or hex bags or something like that. But it's essentially the same thing. They were bags with certain items in it, uh, spiritual ingredients that allowed for certain effects. And she would make them. You would come to her at the salon and you would say, "Hey, my husband's cheating and he's dating a woman down the street. Can I fix my husband, or can I kill the woman? Can I do one of these two things?" And she would hook up a gree bag and give it to you and tell you to do whatever, pour some chicken blood on it. I don't know what the ingredients to these things are, but you would do whatever the instructions are and it would fix your problem. They were strong enough that she sold them in the back of the salon as much as she was doing hair in the front of the salon. So if you sell one gree and it doesn't work, that person's going to tell people, "Yeah, I gave it 20 bucks. That thing didn't work." But she was constantly selling them. So to me, that meant they were either working or they were under the pretense of working. So I don't know which one it was, but if you're a singer and you sing a song and that song is terrible, nobody's buying your second album.
Right. Yes.
People were constantly going there getting her new album, constantly. So I'm thinking she must have had something, and it could have been, you know what? It could go back to that whole, she's listening to people talk and she's like, "Oh, Fred is dating Pam, but his wife doesn't know." And she could say, "Oh, child, you need this bag, take this," and be leery of Pam. And she could do stuff like that. And you take the bag home, you're watching out for Pam, and you realize that bag works, but it's not. She just said something that, it could be just fake stuff.
Well, here's one of the stories I find fascinating with this is it's the same thing, kind of like when we discussed the St. Pete lights. It's she had a cottage, like the St. Pete lights, the same thing. It's like there was a witch's cottage, and the cottage was still destroyed, but yet all these spirits linger. So Marie Laveau, the same thing. Her cottage was destroyed. The one that she lived in was demolished. But people still say, see ghosts around the area where she lived, even though the cottage is gone. People are seeing ghosts by her tomb. Um, there are like all these like weird, eerie things that occur around the area where she lived. So it's even though the house is gone, I guess it's the spirit is living on in that area, or maybe it's all the voodoo stuff that's involved too. That people are getting this sense. I mean, I haven't been there, but you were at her tomb though. Did you go at night? I'm just curious. So
I just so I could say I did it, I left my hotel at about like 11:30, and I walked up and down the street, and there were people wandering. And I thought to myself, "Are those people wandering? Or is that something else happening?" And I walked about a block and a half up, and I was like, "You know what? I should probably go back because I'm not sure." And I went back. But to what you were saying, I think the impact that a story or an actual phenomenon has would be equivalent to like an explosive. If somebody says, "I think I heard something in the alley," that might be a firecracker. It's going to last for an instant. It's gone, bang, you're scared, you leave, you don't think about it anymore. Something like Marie Laveau would be like Chernobyl. It hit the city, it hit, and years later, 100 years later, there's still spiritual residue floating around. She hit that city so hard with the actuality or the potential of something. She hit that city so hard and it was in people's minds so bad. It's like the reason that scientists think that people fear the dark,
well, I said
because
about the residual energy, right? And
residual energy.
right.
Our ancestors knew there's something out there, man. There's something that could grab you in the dark. And that fear, is imprinted into your DNA. And 1,000 years later, you're like, "I got a light switch, but I probably should not walk in the dark." You feel it. That's with her. She put that fear in people so deep, so long that it's residual. It just passes through
Well,
people.
there is right there. am I wrong? I read that there is a Marie Laveau house to go visit there, but this was not the one that she lived in. There is something that you can tour, the Marie Laveau house.
There is a her mother owned a home, and she was of a different status than Marie was. She
Okay.
had I believe her husband was he was a richman or a congressman. He had some type of power.
Right.
And in those days, unfortunately, in those days, being African American put you on different
Right.
tiers.
Mm-hmm.
Her grandmother was, or her mother was here. Being the daughter of her mother, put her just a little bit below. So she didn't live there. She had a cottage nearby. The cottage was eventually, destroyed. And just try to scrub the city clean of that stuff. This cottage was destroyed, but the actual mother's house still stands. You can go there. I watched a video not that long ago. You can go there. You can check it out and everything. They had there's a black see-through fence, one of those barred
And you could
fence.
stay
You
there,
can
right?
look
And you
through.
could stay. It's like a hotel. It's like, is it or no?
You have to get permission to stay there because it stays locked up
Okay.
because people for a long time it was open and you could walk through and all that kind of good stuff. But somebody to me vandalized the place. When I watched the video, they were saying that the guy was trying to do something good and he painted it pink. I don't know how that's a good
I don't
thing.
know. That's a
If
good thing.
somebody can't, that's terrible.
Yeah.
But to me, that's vandalism. So he painted
Right.
the place pink, and the paint that he used was not like a paint from the wall. It wasn't a
Right.
paint that would breathe, and it started squeezing and tearing up the brick. So they had to remove it and do all this kind of stuff. And they did that. And I looked that up. I was like, well, why would they clean it? It's just a house. It's actually a landmark now. The mother's home is. So you can visit it, but without strict and specific permissions, you can't. I mean, you could just jump over it. I mean, it's a fence. But if you get caught, you probably get in trouble. But I mean, it's probably as tall as me. If you're young and spry, you could probably jump that thing, man. But there's a fence that's locked that is keeping people out. But there is a physical address. I want to say 1025, if I remember correctly, but it's a 4-digit
1020,
number,
1020, St.
1020,
1020 St. Anne Street.
and it's an actual spot, like what were we talking about before? That was an actual place that you could the last one we did. Whenever there's a physical thing, like say the Stanley Motel, that you can actually visit
Right.
and experience the thing is more terrifying to me than the stories. The stories are always good. I love to hear the stories.
Yeah.
But when they say, like, this cup was possessed by Beelzebub, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that's a video. But then somebody brings me the cup, I'd probably be like, get that out of my house. So
I want no part
it's
of those things either. I don't want. It's like it's stupid. It could be stupid. I mean, but I don't want any part of those things. Well, like you said,
well,
like the Annabelle, the doll in Key West, or all that stuff. That I don't. Robert, right? Right? Is it Robert the doll in Key West? Right. I don't want any part of it. If someone would give me like a doll that everyone says is possessed and like every owner died or something, I don't want it. It's whether I believe in this stuff or not. Why take that chance? Why would you take it into your house?
why would you risk? It's like if somebody said, "Hey, man, if you watch this VHS, which nobody even uses anymore, you watch this
Right?
VHS,
Yes.
7 days later you'll die." I was like, "Oh, well, you keep it." That would be the end of the movie. I'm not watching that. You just told me if I watch it, I'm going to die. I'm like, "Oh, well, I won't watch it." If you go to this well, this girl will come out and get you. Oh, okay, well, guess it's time for vacation. I'm leaving. Why would they tell you in advance what would get you, and people still do it.
it's it's like you could not believe all you want in something, but I'm still not taking that chance. And logically, I think like, oh no, it's just a doll. It's just what can happen, but I'm not taking that chance. But it's like the same thing with the Stanley Hotel. Like I was reading that at the Laveau house, people have woken up in the middle of the night, seen like shadows standing near their bed. Um, and so I don't know if Marie Laveau, like we said at the beginning, if she's considered like evil or if she's considered benevolent. And so I think it's probably somewhere in the middle.
You know what? I use a lot of analogies. I consider spiritual energy like a lantern ring. You know, You can have a lantern ring. If I see a guy with a lantern ring, I don't want any part of whatever's going on. If it's a green ring and he's a good guy, okay, okay, I get it. He's a good guy. But that means he's fighting bad guys. So somewhere around here's a
It's gonna
giant
be the
alien
best.
or something. I don't want any parts of that. If he's wearing a yellow or a red ring, meaning he's a bad guy, I don't want any part of that because he is the problem. If there's a ring involved, I don't want any problem. If there's spiritual energy, it could be good, but then that means they're probably fighting or drawing evil. If it's bad, then they are the evil. If there's spiritual energies like a Green Lantern ring, I don't want any part of that business.
But what did you feel? What did you read? I mean, what's your conclusion with Marie Laveau herself? Was she good or not good? Was she, I don't know if evil is the right word, but it's like not necessarily good. It's not. I mean, it leans towards more, bad doing on some things. So what do you think? Was she good or not good?
I think she was a product of her environment. I think that she grew up in a time where you had to be as tough or as vicious as your surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And she had the capacity to be more vicious than her surroundings. She could put people under her thumb, whether with honey or with a whip. And she got people to do what she wanted. She felt a little bit of power. She grew up in power. Her parents and her husband were powerful people, and she knew the power of controlling people. And I think if she was just a benevolent, cool chick, she knew, well, I'm a nice person, but the way that I get the things I want is through manipulating other people.
Mm-hmm.
Or she was not a good person and she thought the same thing. I need to put people together that will do the things that I need. I think that the situation forced her to be more evil than it would have been if she was raised with sunshine and
Well, yeah,
dewdrops.
but again, let's going back to the beginning. Family disappearing, the rich husband suddenly dying. I'm still leaning more toward that aspect of it than just a product of her environment. Which, yeah, it could very well be. But even a product of the environment, you're not necessarily getting rid of your family for for, for financial gain. So
Well,
I don't. Yeah,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, it's like it's some of the things that I've read. I've read different things that oh, she was this and kind, and I know that American Horror Story really like painted an inaccurate picture in a lot of things. It's just for dramatic purposes. There was a lot of historical inaccuracies. I get all that, but there's the but again. Things did happen. So whether it was proved or not, things did happen around her. So this is one of those spirits, like it's like I told you, I've gone to haunted hotels and I see, I wanted to see that there was always the thing about this the chambermaid is out, it's outside at night feeding the chickens. I'm cool with that. I wanted to see that. I didn't get to, but I wanted to see that because this is not a ghost that's going to harm me. This, in her life when she was alive, Marie Laveau, we don't know what she did. I don't necessarily want to see that spirit now.
Yeah. Her motivations, whatever put her to the point where she was like, it's okay to cut somebody's throat every once in a while. The
Right.
motivations, they're superseded by the actual activity. The reason that she would decide to be able to cut someone's throat is not as important as the throat that was getting cut. I agree with you. She seems like, I never met that woman. I hope to never ever meet her because they say she's hanging out still.
Right.
But I've never met that woman. But from what I'm told and from what I gather, she is not the type of person that you trifle with. She's the type of person you avoid. If she's on one side of the street, don't cross the street, turn around and go the other
And
way.
don't cross her
She's that
either.
type of, or cross her, yeah. So she's I, I know I segue a lot. I saw a movie a long time ago called Miss Rose with Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan was a guy that had just gotten in the country. He didn't know the language. He was learning everything. And the people he starts to meet are bad people, pickpockets and stuff like that. But he needs to eat, he needs to survive. So he starts to get into just a little bit of bad things. And then eventually, by the end of the movie, he's a mob boss and he's controlling, parts of the city. And it's a rock that's rolling downhill. It starts real slow. She could have been like, you know, I could use a sandwich today or something like that, and just little motivations. But the end, she was a mob boss by the end, just like Jackie Chan. It seems like she started out small, like she's always known from what I gather, where she wanted to go, what she wanted, and just gradually went from picking pockets to cutting throats and putting chickens under people's beds or whatever.
Well, here's how I look at it. It all depends how they were when they were alive, to me. Like, God forbid anything happened to one of us. Like, God forbid anything happened to you. Like, you come back as a ghost. Like, well, yeah, I can hang with Troy's ghost. It's fine. Troy was cool. We were together. So, yeah, I can hang with it. Now, someone that was doing voodoo and maybe offing her family when she was alive, I don't want to see them when they're dead either. That's the thing. And also, going back again, if I don't want to mess with voodoo. I don't know, whether it'll like logically, I want to believe in it, but someone that's practicing it, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be around them. I remember, when I was looking for homes once early on, like many, many years ago, we came to a home that had like chicken bones in there, like, practicing, like it was on the floor there. I'm like, I don't want to live here. I don't know what's happened here. I don't want to live here. So that's it. That's if I don't want to mess with you when you're alive or something like that, I definitely don't want to see you as a ghost later on.
I agree. I
Well,
agree. Because Charles Lee Ray killed more people when he turned into Chucky
right,
than when he was a
exactly,
serial killer. So, yeah.
exactly. Well, let us know what you guys think. Let us know if you've encountered anything with Marie Laveau, any stories, any hauntings, and what you know of the tale that maybe we left out. So yeah, leave us in the comments. Anyway, this has been Nightmares Before Bed. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Troy Cannon, and please like, comment, and subscribe.
Subscribe.
Thank you for watching Nightmares Before Bed. And now, it's time to shut the lights, close your eyes, and go to sleep. If you can.